Welcome all of our viewers in Devil Lab. Today we are honored to have here the Dr. Gatlung, who just gave us an really emotional and inspiring lecture today. And Doctor, I would like to start by asking you, welcome to this interview and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
But for start, how and when did you got involved in this road, in this peace road that you are so long now been involved?
It was, to be quite precise, 61 years ago, 1951. You know, we had the German occupation in Norway. So as a Norwegian, I had a very intimate, deep knowledge of what war was with my father in concentration camp and things of that kind. So the problem arose whether I should be a conscientious objector, refuse to do military service. Because now a new conflict was coming up, the Cold War, United States against Soviet Union and so on. So no problem with the arguments against war, but I wanted to know more about peace. So I asked universities if they could give me, if I could borrow a book about theory of peace or practice of peace. They found nothing. So there was nothing. So then I sort of decided that, okay, there is evidently a science that is missing. This is my job. And now 61 years later, and 150 conflicts mediated and 150 books and a couple of thousand articles, mainly about conflict, trauma, cooperation, peace, violence and so on. I have at least fulfilled my promise to myself when I was 20 years old.
Amazing.
That's the story.
And also, how can we as students today be a part of this, or how can we get involved in these peace matters, or get in the same road as you now that we have books?
Well, first of all, you demand from the university that they have courses in peace and conflict studies. And you have at this university, UDLAP for instance, you have very competent people. So you just simply include it in the curriculum to study, to start with elementary things and then more advanced. But you see, sooner or later you have to get into practice. And that means doing something, it means mediating, reconciling. And you will very often find that in your own circle of friends and in your own family and maybe with your novio novia, there could be something that could be done better. So you learn as much from practice as from studying. And the way I try to construct this field was by bringing theory and practice together. And that I had from my father, who was a physician. So diagnosis of the conflict, prognosis, which very often is that this will end badly with violence. And then the therapy in terms of solution. And then you try to change the reality in a more peaceful direction. And this theory and practice hand in hand, a good university would organize that. So you could demand that of the university too. I think students have to take the initiative.
Definitely. And moving on to some politics, I'm afraid we have to touch it. Is the lack of equality in the biggest problem we have in Mexico, or is there something more important?
I think it is the major problem. But you have, of course, added to the difference in, let us say, wealth and income from the richest people in the world. Mr. Slim is a good candidate. Not quite slim where money is concerned. And evidently an extremely competent person, to the people who are dying of hunger, starving to death. And you have them at the bottom of society, for instance in Chiapas. But that's one difference. Then you have the difference in race, the ethnic difference. And you have a kind of interesting society run by mestizos with the indigenos at the bottom, and the more pure whites on a sidetrack in their own society, tied and linked to the giant country to the north. And at the same time you have a variety of languages. So it is not only racial, but also cultural, ethnic. Very heterogeneous country. And you might contemplate that some of these should have more autonomy. So that when you talk about the Estados Unidos de Mexico, that maybe there should be some autonomies if some of them want to govern themselves. At a high or a low level of income, I'm just thinking of their political rights. It's a complicated country, no doubt about that, but I think the overwhelming problem is the misery at the bottom. And that makes communication almost impossible. And it also makes for fears. Those at the top are afraid that when those at the bottom come up, they will treat those at the top as badly as those at the top treated them. And that is, well, there are very concrete places in Mexico, you know, where you can point to, this is where those at the top are living, and this is where those at the bottom is living. And the army is at the disposal of those at the top, by and large. But something could happen to that mechanism too. And you've had that before. Pancho Villa. In other words, you had in the complicated Mexican history quite a lot of things that to some extent confirmed the fear of those at the top. Difficult, yet I would simply start with the municipalities most at the bottom and then invest in them, inserting resources, making small enterprises that would grow food, make clean water available, build polyclinics and schools, alphabetize them, and make clothing and housing available as much as possible based on local material. And I would simply map Mexico and start with the worst cases, and then employ those who suffer most. It's not a question of efficient work, it's a question of dignity. And in other words, lifting them up from the bottom.
Well, Doctor, I would like to thank you very much for this little time you gave us. And to all of you viewers, Dr. Gatlung, which just is an amazing person and just gave us the solution that we need.
Well, it's my pleasure, and good luck with your good work. Thank you.
Thank you.